Hello, everybody. Catherine Perry here with another Big Vision Mastermind. This is Module 6, brought to you by ICPotentials.com. I have got on the line with me Mukesh Sharma, who I call Mr. Black Belt. How are you doing tonight, Mukesh?
Excellent, Catherine, and thanks to all of you viewers and listeners who are on the right now on the live call, and also all of you who are going to listen it later.
Very good. Mukesh, I think you need to raise your volume just a notch, and that way I think we'll be matching in our tone just a little better. Okay, very good. Well, can you believe it? It's been 6 weeks since we started this journey, and each and every week we have been building on the week before. And we had kind of a lot of material we covered in call 1 where we really kind of gave the big overview, and then each week we've been building on those ideas that are introduced. And last week we introduced this idea and this method of what I call it the T-bar, where we're creating contrast, where we're looking at every experience that we've had positively and negatively, and then we are actually going into another exercise where we go up and we would look at those experiences from a different perspective. We'd go up into the IC potential zone and observe that from our mastery position so that we could get the big picture. Then we did the incredible points of light demonstration, and if you have not had a chance to follow along with these videos and do one at a time, and we know that we're giving a lot of information during the week, and we want to keep all the materials kept in one place so that you can go back and access it. And Mukesh, I want to address this just a little bit. It's kind of easy to go, yeah, there's the stuff, I'll get to it, and then you never get to it. Well, what we want to invite you to do is to commit to a time that you're listening to this. We've done our very best to keep the times within an hour that we're doing any of the exercises, and that you have the targeted teachings. But if you even just broke out like less than 15 to 20 minutes a day on the material, you could get through all of it and you'd be able to have the transformation. Because, like for example, last week, that points of light exercise started with here's a failure and the thing you wish you could have had, right? The thing you see out in the world. And we started making these connections, and by the end of it, we were able to connect into and start getting information about our vision, our mission, our purpose, what that would look like. And we tied it back to just one little point in time, and that opened up all kinds of understanding. So this is built not only consciously, but it's built in consciousness. And what I mean by that is Mukesh and I are actually, we're talking all of this out, and we are, we're tuning into the group, and we're in this group consciousness with you. So we're living this. We had the framework for what we wanted to create. Then we're actually going through this process with you as we complete a module, and the next level of information comes in. So it's building, 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 and we wanted to demonstrate kind of how that works. So in our bonuses this week, Mukesh and I like to record when we work together, and I wanted to walk through what the PowerPoints were going to be and the main ideas and how we were going to talk about that. And we spontaneously went into process. And that's how it is every day for us right now. But it turned out to be a very powerful experience. So we're doing this work with you. Hey, Mukesh, do you have anything that you could add to that?
This is very correct, as you just said, because one of the things which we are doing is we are actually living this life.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the points I want to emphasize to everybody, that this is our current reality. This is what we are, we do on a daily basis. And as we are doing, we are really shifting ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mukesh cut out right then, but we're saying we're really shifting ourselves as we're creating the shift for you. And he will be right back. He's been having
Of
some.
gems are
There you go.
appearing.
There you are. You actually cut out there for just a second.
Okay.
Yeah. And I told him that you
Okay,
were
I
saying we shift
apologize, guys.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, we shift ourselves with this, every day there is like a new diamonds we are finding from the ground earth.
Mm-hmm.
New, gold we are finding from the ground earth. And so this is the reality. And what, as Catherine said, guys, please go through. And also I love to even hear your feedback. And that could be in a shape of suggestions, that could be in a shape of even constructive criticism or questions or concerns, any in a shape
Mm-hmm.
of. But I encourage you to walk this through, because this is life changing modules, like from module 1 to today we are doing till 6. So if you have not walked through them yet, please sit down, relax over the weekend, and go through one by one on all the modules. You will find a lot of answers, because these are gems which where you can find a lot of your life answers as well. And if you can't, please write to us, send us an email,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we are here for, to provide you these solutions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, in my family, from the time we started this, there's been shifts. I mean, literally, this started just before my daughter got married, so it was already a big experience. But then some other things kind of started happening in my family, and things that had been held up for a while, things just started kind of moving. And now, like my daughter, a job that the dream job she ever wanted appeared, right? And our relationship went to a different level. And my granddaughter Maddie is kind of acting a different way. And you might hear her screaming and singing in the background, which are interchangeable sounds actually, but but she's out there just blowing off steam, having being a happy girl. And but we're going through this shift with you, and we're holding the vision for you in addition to the course. So I just wanted to be sure and share that with you, that this is going to create changes in your life and your friends and family life, and this is designed to actually help you and have that support. That's why we introduced the 6 structures of belief, or excuse me, the belief to creation piece, where we're dealing with relationship stuff, or when you want to go meet a new client, or the T-bar piece, or the 4 part statement, so that you can meet yourself wherever you are, but immediately flip it and start creating consciously the states that you want to be in. Okay? So everything's been with intention. We're going to be talking about where vision really comes from. We have this idea, right, that vision kind of comes from on high. We might be like, I used to watch, like movies like the Ten Commandments, or Noah's Ark is out right now, and to be like, there's the voice, goes, oh, Noah, build the ark. And you go, oh, yes, Lord, I'll build the ark, right? We think there's going to be something that kind of comes down and lands on you and then pushes you out, but actually it comes from a very different place that you might not have expected. And then there's, I want to talk to you about how it actually gets activated in your life. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is really stopping us from getting clarity, and how to expand your sense of potential. Now, we are including the PowerPoints in the handouts. We have 2 recordings that are going with this, where I actually take you through a process and a meditation, and then you get to hear Mukesh and I go through our kind of talk about the program, and there's some things that we didn't put into it, but there's some concepts there. And then you get to kind of hear how, like if I go into process with someone, how I'm meeting them. Well, the reason I did that too is I want to give you a language and a way of thinking about meeting yourself, talking to yourself in a new way. So let's get started. But before we do, normally we do a calibration, but this time I get to tell you a story about one of my favorite people on the planet. Oprah Winfrey, of course, is, media mogul, and she's a fellow Aquarian. She's someone who really, through her own experience, she's healing the world. She's telling the truth about who she is, what her experience is. She tells people stories. She has a big education piece. And, a lot of us know Oprah's story, we think. I was surprised to find out some things about her, but the story that she would tell would be like her parents weren't married. She was extreme poverty growing up in the South. Her father was in Tennessee. Her mother was up in Milwaukee. And she lived with her grandmother until age 6, and they were very poor. And I was watching this PBS program a few years back. This was back in 2006, and then you can even catch parts of it on YouTube. And then they have the DVD for sale, which I show you at the end of how you can get a hold of that. But she was telling this wonderful story about being with her grandmother, living in the South, having to churn butter and, wash clothes on the washboard, and just this really hard life. And the person that was in the interview with her, the person who'd done the genealogy, said, "Look at that beautiful little girl. Isn't she beautiful?" And Oprah, you could see the reaction on Oprah's face when she said, "Well, if you had been there then, you might not have heard anyone say that that was a beautiful child," right? That's all she was going to say, because she was very dark-skinned. And in fact, later when she went to live with her mother, she was considered so unattractive as a child, she wasn't allowed to sleep in her mother's house. That's the kind of response she got in her family. But there was something inside of Oprah that was different. She knew that there was something kind of inside of her that she thought different. Not only did she look different, but she kind of felt different, because one day her grandmother was saying, "Oprah, Oprah, watch me, watch what I'm doing over here." And she was doing the laundry and hanging them up. And she said, "Watch me, watch what I'm doing, because someday you're going to have to do this." And Oprah at 5 years old looked at her and knew that she wouldn't have to do that, that her life would be very different than her grandmother's. So first, just think about that. How would a child of 5 who's never experienced anything but that life ever get an idea that she could be different, that she wouldn't have to go through a hardship like what her grandmother was going through? Later, at age 6, without any discussion, it was, "You've got to pack your stuff up, get in the car, and you're going to go live with your mother." And Oprah had to leave the family that she knew and get in a car and travel 1,200 miles away to go be with her mother in Milwaukee. The person that was the mother's roommate was very light-skinned and hated black people, is what Oprah says. And so, as I said before, Oprah wasn't allowed to sleep inside the house. She had to actually sleep out on a porch. By the time she was age 9, Oprah had been raped, and there was continual sexual abuse until the age of 11. Now, all this time between the age of 6 and about 11, she's going back and forth between her mother's house, her father's house in Tennessee, and grandmother's house. And she's just shuttled around, and she said that kept her from ever really feeling connected to people. By the time she was a preteen, she was pretty wild and out of control. She decided to try to take charge of what was happening to her. And so she became very promiscuous. But then she was trying to take power, so there was a family friend that was getting beaten by her boyfriend, and she would actually tell the boyfriend, "Hey, you can have me if you don't beat her." Now think about a child having that kind of strength, having that heart of service, thinking of someone else that way. And there's another clue that there's something different about the way she thought. She was not in pure survival. She was already operating at a higher vibration. When she went on, by the time it turned out her mother said she just can't handle her, her father said, well, I'll take her. By then, father had decided that, he really, education was not an area that he did well in. He was like in his mid-20s before he even graduated high school, but he stayed with it until he did, and he committed to learning a trade. And so he became a barber. And him with his new wife established new rules for Oprah and put the lockdown and said education, and you're going to have to follow the rules. What he didn't know at the time was that she was pregnant, and she was going to have to tell him. And right after he had instituted these new rules, she went into labor and lost the baby. And the father had said that he and his wife had been prepared to take on the baby. But he told Oprah, he said, God has decided to give you a second chance. I suggest you take it and make the most of it you can. And from then on, she was committed 100% to her education and whatever it took to get scholarships and move herself forward. And then we know about her broadcasting career and the rules that she broke and everything. This just amazing story. And one thing I always thought about Oprah, especially when I hear someone say, well, I need certification or training, or what could I do? I mean, there are a lot of people that went to broadcast school, but they didn't achieve what Oprah did. What was it about Oprah that was so different? And then there's certainly no mogul school. There's no billionaire world influencer school. But she was committed to her healing. She was committed to discovering her vision. She had this fire inside of her, and she kept moving forward. So fast forward to this program that she was invited to be on, African American Lives on PBS, and the genealogist was when I tuned into the story, I saw the section where the genealogist was going through her family tree and kind of showing what some of her heritage was, and then showed her the story about her great-great-grandfather Winfrey, and how when he was a freed slave, it was the first census after the Civil War, and it showed that no one in the house could read, none of the adults or the children. And 10 years later, he showed on the same census that not only could the children read, which you would expect, but so could the adults. And if you think about what was going on in the Reconstruction South, it was a lot of turmoil. There was danger, even in being a freed black person. Your rights, the laws were changing every day. There'd be no protection, and old militia coming through, and carpetbaggers, and just, it was a dangerous time. And then people are trying to find each other and start from ground zero. Their entire world that they ever knew before no longer existed. Yet in the middle of this, he committed to his education. And what they later found was not only could he read, but he had taken a portion of the land that had been bequeathed him through being a freed slave and some of the laws then, and he dedicated a portion of it for a school. And he had the school not only for him and his family, but all the children who could come in this extreme poverty. And what they committed to was education. Later, what Oprah found was not only had he done it, but other aunts and uncles had done the same on their property. When I saw Oprah's face, it was like I could just see this ripple go through her, and it went through me too. Later, she did an interview, and she said it was the single most galvanizing time of her experience of her life, to realize that this feeling, try not to cry, this feeling inside of her kept moving her forward, and she said she knew education was going to be her salvation. As much as her father believed in it, there was something about it, the way it was inside of her. And at the time of this interview, she just opened up her South Africa school. So right now, I'm a little verklempt. Right now, I know I've just told the story, and right now, I want you to take some time to make some notes to yourself. And what part of Oprah's story resonates with you in your childhood experience or your life challenges, and what really became important as a result of those experiences? Now, if you're listening to this in the recording, you can, of course, pause this while you take a few minutes to take notes, and I'm going to take a little sip of water while you write down something that's fresh in your mind. Now, what I can say about this personally, besides really identifying with Oprah in a lot of different ways, I'm from Texas, and I have family that's from Alabama. And I have two lines of family that have Southern heritage and were slave owners. In fact, I did an internet search just before this call, and I found 10 different records just on the internet showing that there's not only could I identify the white family with my birth father's name, but there were the black families. And the reason this is important to me is if we think about slavery in any form, and I grew up during the civil rights time. I mean, I remember segregated water fountains and separate entries and all of that, and remember even feeling different because I couldn't quite grasp what all the hatred was about, or the way that people were talking about black people. And there were some things that I unintentionally accepted to be true because I hadn't been told anything else, but there was things I felt inside too. And I think it has to do with the DNA connection. But if there's a slave and a master, they are both enslaved under the same system. And so Oprah's revelation became my revelation. What I understood was in this family system, in this inside of the DNA, and we don't know where this would even come from the father, but we do know that there was the great-grandfather, that there was something happening in the outer environment that sparked and created the need for this education for survival. It was crucial for their survival as a family to be able to deal with shopkeepers, keep your bill handy, to read contracts and agreements. But they understood it was power, and they had amazing role models at the time. So here's this spark, and it imprinted literally on the DNA of not only the father, but all of those family members. And we're going to talk a little bit more in a minute about that in the morphogenic field. But then move this forward through the history of Oprah's family. And to me, I was always stunned by the fact that everyone didn't know that story already. How extraordinary. But we get caught up in our drama. We get caught up in pure survival, which is a very low vibration. This lower vibration when we are operating there, we cannot access those higher levels of understanding, resourcefulness, flexibility. There's fewer choices when you're down in survival. And what's stopping us from really getting the vision is pure survival mode. But I'm going to go through some of the things that are stopping that. Okay? Mikesh, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to just kind of check in. How are you feeling as I'm telling the story about Oprah?
Well, like there were a lot of emotions, after I'm listening to this. I never heard, like, I never knew that saddened part of her torture. And at the same time, like where she is amazing. She's an amazing woman. And now also, a lot of us may not have gone through all that, in the depthness of that, torture, but we don't need to go through that anyway. And also, but we do face our day-to-day challenges, which sometimes we feel that that's the end of the world. And in our day-to-day, in our business challenges, in our, like, life challenges, in our family challenges, relationship challenges, in our health challenges. So, like, as you right now, you're showing this brick wall. Like at that time, we think that, oh, this is the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And but like what you're going to uh, like provide the details as in from this moment onward will is going to be amazing, and how we can conquer and these obstacles, and bring the best big vision out of us, and also to achieve that big vision and live in reality that vision in us.
Yes. And Mikesh, I have to pause for a second because there are people who did not get the link. I thought they could go to the main page and get the link for the call, and I'm having to pause for just a second and send the link out, okay?
Yeah, and also I did reply to a few people already. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Yep.
So, all right. So I'm going to send that again, and we can let people know that we can just leave this on the air for a little bit and they can replay it, right? They can just, if we just keep that link, or what needs to happen for them to be able to access the callback from the beginning? They'd be able to just replay this, right, from that link? Oop, I think he dropped again. Well, we're going to move forward. He may be checking into something. All right. So what blocks the vision? So let's start with, we hear this of the unresolved issues or experiences from the past, and we talk about that, and we've been doing some of that clearing. But here's where we're stopping it. When we are looking for our vision, we tend to think that the vision's something new, that is starting now and going up and out in the future, and like we're going to get this, then boom, here's all the information. But actually, all along, there have been clues. There's been feelings and maybe pictures coming in. But remember, back on Module 1, I mentioned this, that vision is linked to memory. And based on how we remember things. Now, I think we know that memory is subjective. You have your experience of a memory, and someone who went through a situation with you will have their own memory. Just a little example, my daughter and I mean, really got into a thing the other night where when she was 9, she wanted her hair cut super short, and I crystal clear remember her saying, I want my hair cut short like Curly's on the Three Stooges, because she was swimming. And I'm going, are you sure? Yes, I want it like Curly. I want it like Curly. So I cut her hair really short. And then I even in the mirror looked, I said, this short? And then, like, yes, she was emphatic. She remembered it completely different. She said, no, I wanted my hair to look like Eddie Munster's, and you cut my hair too short, and I look like a boy all summer. And you're wrong, and I'm right. and and this is one of these like really strong memories in my life. I mean, because it was kind of funny, but she looked really cute with the short hair. I mean, but tied ribbons and bands in her hair and stuff when we wanted to get dressed up or go to church. But she got really upset because I remembered it differently. Well, that's because she had her position and her memory, and she had her reason, and she's had the way that she has retold it time and time again. So when we are accessing our memory, or the vision comes in, and sometimes we'll go, well, yeah, I would love to do that, but I remember the last time I tried to step out and tried to be a success. I had this big feeling I should do something before, and I got out there and got all in trouble. That's unresolved. So the way I want you to think about it, though, is it's not necessarily like a block. I want you to think of it this way. I want you to think about it like a computer program or a math problem. And if we had a computer program, and most of us have computers, and we've probably have upgraded the system, especially if you have a PC. I have a Mac, so that doesn't happen quite as often. But a little joke there. But we will have conflicting programs. It'll say, well, if you want to run this, then you've got to upgrade that, and it'll send up an error message, right? Or it'll shut down because there's conflicting information. That is often what happens with getting a vision, and it's not matching how we know ourselves, or we say, no, we've made this decision right now on how we want to handle things in the future. And so if you have a vision of being a leader, but the way that you decided to stay out of trouble, like let's say you're in a job, and I went through this. I saw that I refused a lot of promotions because I saw that the managers had less control over their schedule. They didn't get to earn more money. They weren't entitled to bonuses. There would be different, it just looked like a real downside to me, where I had a regular schedule. So I got into the habit, and I made it a policy not to advance myself. Okay? When I went to start advancing myself, that created a conflict, and I had to make a new rule, and I had to upgrade my thinking and attitude in certain areas. I had to resolve the memory. So the way that we resolve it in I See Potentials and Big Vision Mastermind is by addressing it, whatever happened, what feeling we had, right? We're going through that creation to belief. What did we need? Like, what happened? What do we believe happened? What did we need? What was the feeling? What was the rule that we established then? And then what do we need? And then we create the image, right? That's how we resolve that. Often, we can just decide, you know what, we have a new rule. And there's no reason in my current situation that I can't decide to be somebody different, that I can't decide to advance as far as I want to. I don't know who needs that teaching. That just kind of came in, but here's what I've noticed. Every person that I know who is a success, who's a multimillionaire, who is living their dream and having a big impact, they had this big idea come in. And the first question they asked was, could I really do that? I mean, me? And then they decided to say yes. I have to try it. I got to go for it. Yeah, I can. And they made this decision to move forward. It was a fork in the road moment. And so many people go, well, that's probably not me. That's going to take too much energy. Where's the easy button? I want the grace and ease path. Right? but they don't really say, maybe there's a way to do this. Okay, and so we're going to move it forward. We're going to move you into going, well, I don't see how it could happen, into, okay, I'm seeing that there's some considerations here, but let's not let those considerations stop us from getting our vision. Now, those unresolved memories and feelings could actually not even be your own, but they could be family issues from previous generations. We've talked some about how when we're children, we're imprinted with our parents. And if you work with me one-on-one, we go really deep into this. Where emotionally we're taking the mother's programs, and how we're going out taking action in the world is our father's program. Like, how do we get things done? If there were no father in the house, that we would go energetically to the mother's internal representation of what a father is. That may or may not be a human being. In her mind's eye, a father could be like Father Knows Best. Or in her mind's eye, a father could be Jack the Ripper or an abuser. But we each hold within us, energetically, psychologically, an internal mother and father. And those are how we process and how we experience the world, how we take action out into the world. Beyond that, notice I have a little DNA image here. Beyond that is actually programming that's come down, that we have trained each other, that there are certain habits, attitudes, beliefs, and that's stored in what's called the morphogenic field that surrounds the DNA. And we're going to talk a little bit more of that in a minute. So the DNA is inside of each and every cell. It's the building blocks. And there is a master DNA strand located in the pineal gland of the brain. I don't have an image of it here. I'm just going to give a brief explanation just for time's sake. The master DNA strand is the original, and it's the one that, as it starts splitting and dividing, the RNA starts making and going off into cells. But this is kind of like the master cell where the original information is kept. And there is this field of energy that surrounds it. And this field of energy contains all kinds of information that looks almost like, a field of energy, and there'd be like little movies and symbols in it. And I'm going to post a story I wrote a while back about something that happened once I did some work on that. It literally straightened out my granddaughter's foot when she was a baby, and my foot and her mother's in 24 hours. An amazing story. So this field carries information about our experience and environment, so that the DNA that controls the switches, and it turns the DNA switch signals on and off to help the cells know how to configure. Now I want you to think about this phrase, on, off. It's really a binary system is what's called. It's either on or off, but so is our programming. Our programming is on or off mentally. It's really very simple, okay? So if you notice that, it's like, I'm trying to concentrate, and you could simply go, my focus program must be off. Let me turn on my focus program. How's that for an idea? I know that's a writer downer. So in this energy field, this field of energy, there are these little pockets or smaller fields of information that record habits, behavior, new learning, and records of new experiences. And then through feedback, and what it's saying is like, hey, the more that we think about it, the more that we reinforce it, then the stronger it gets. This learning's communicated through that field to everyone who shares the DNA based on perceptions, and the new programming is adapted. It's amazing. If you could think about your DNA being like an internet connection to it's internet connection to consciousness. So when you are making a shift, a deep personal shift in your perception, you're shifting your whole family and everyone who shares DNA with you. It's amazing. In the laboratory, they've taken 2 cells from one person, and they've taken these cells, and they would be 50 miles apart. And what they would do to one cell, and they would change the environment of that cell, that other cell 50 miles away would go through the same changes with no external stimulation. The way that that could happen is the morphogenic field. Something happened in great-great-grandpa's morphogenic field that said, we must educate in order to survive. In our family, we must do this. And the community, the more people in our community who know, the safer we'll be, the more empowered we are, and then we can all advance. If anyone would be the perfect embodiment and the fulfillment of that mission, of that prime directive, if you will, wouldn't that be Oprah? I think it's really interesting that she didn't have any children. There are other people in her family who did. So thankfully, Oprah is free to do her genius thing. So in her story, her father believed in education, but she also said she had felt that deep inside her that education was the key to her salvation. And there's her daddy there. And even though she had no idea about her great-grandfather, the level of his commitment to education for himself, his children, and his community were deep within inside her. And then the year she found out about her ancestors, she had just opened the girls' school, something she'd had visions of doing for many years before she could finally take action on it. And here's what she said. All my life I wanted to lead people to an empathy space, to a gratitude space. I want us all to fulfill our greatest potential, to find our calling, and to summon the courage to live it. And what I love most about this quote is that empathy of being able to meet and connect in at that deep emotional level with another person to the degree that you feel what they feel. And to come into a space of gratitude. Now, when we work with the I See Potential space, and one of the joys of working with Mikesh is we start and we end our days with gratitude. And we state to each other, as we're coming into alignment, what we are grateful to each other for. And gratitude has become a big piece of my day, and it has been the greatest connection to vision and to a greater awareness than I think anything I've ever done in my life. Mikesh, I'm going to pause right here. Are you with me? And he may be actually working on the other piece. I see you. Okay, so he may actually be, he goes into a trance sometimes. So I'm going, all right, so then what blocks the vision? Well, sometimes we fear our personal and financial needs won't be met. Now, this is a real thing. I mean, I understand this. And this is something that's been well documented, and I want to just point this out. You are probably familiar with this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where at the deepest, lowest level is our physiological needs. Breathing, food, water, shelter, sleep. Then moving up, safety and security. Moving up, longing and belonging. Moving up, self-esteem. Finally, self-actualization, where there's morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, potential. And so often we try to solve and create from this lowest level. We try to do everything this lower level so that we can get to the higher level. But the truth is, when we connect to that highest level, that actually is the connector that brings everything in for us. I've worked with people at these different levels for probably the last 10 years, and it is always, always, always by connecting to these higher values and bringing them into the lower level that makes the shift. I mean, could you imagine Gandhi or Martin Luther King waiting to do what they felt must be done until they had their retirement or their pension plans figured out? You know, we tend to want to hang on to our middle age and middle class standards of comfort. You know, so, well, you know, I really would love to free the people in India, but no matter what, I want it to be done in grace and ease. I want to take January and August off, and I want to make sure I've got my retirement handled. Then I can go out and I can go for it. That would sound insane. That we know that that wouldn't necessarily be his way of thinking. We try to impose limiting measurements, conditions, and standards that have nothing to do with the vision before we even get the vision. And so what I have is an illustration here, and the reason I always mention what I have for the illustration is we have people who just listen to the audio. We have measuring tape here with 2 pennies. Like, how do you measure money with a measuring tape? You can't be done. They're not the correct measuring tool, right? That's not how we count it. That's not how we grade it. I think our biggest fear, and I know I went through this, and in fact I had a lot of fears and ideas about like New Age or New Thought or that, you know, but we had this idea if we aligned to our vision and we really did the thing that we were called to do, that we might have to do something like Peace Pilgrim. And I don't know if you ever heard of her, but from 1953 to her death in 1981, she walked across America. She said walking until given shelter and fasting until given food. And she just carried this little bag around with her. And she had meditated, she got the vision for this, and she really wanted to be the voice of peace in the world. Now, fortunately, what I had read that she had said is she never really missed a meal. The house was always open to her. Her basic need was always met. But a lot of us have these little things called families and mortgages, and we might go, well, oh, I don't want to follow a vision. I don't want to have to go out and get rid of all of this, because we hear of so many of the mystics and the teachers that had to do that, right? Or we have this other idea, it's like, well, we have to be like an Oprah and we have to have multi-million dollars, and then we're supposed to go do this other thing. But there are people who are called to be school teachers and bankers and nurses. There's people called to be at every level of experience. They're called to be stay-at-home moms. They're called to be bus drivers. They have a joy about it. You know that they're in the right place because what they're doing aligns to their highest values. I was being really critical of myself one time. I was working at apartments and I was feeling like I was never getting out, and I was creating more and more misery for myself with where I was, even though it was the best paying job I had ever had. It was probably the easiest job, truth to be told, that I had ever had, the least amount of demands on me. And my daughter was at a different level, really was arranged. I was living in a beautiful luxury neighborhood surrounded by gorgeous mountains in Seattle. And yet, I had this idea I had to create misery for myself in order to move forward. And that I should be doing something greater. Even though every day I was meeting people and making a change for people. People would come in to ask for an apartment. I said, why are you looking? And they go, and they'd start crying. And next thing you know, there'd be a counseling session or coaching. I was always naturally helping people. I didn't know how to occupy where I was in that moment. I was arguing with my reality. And then I was at a baseball game later, I had a reason to go to one, and there's this guy who was a hot dog vendor there, and he was one of those guys who could like throw the hot dogs like up 12 aisles or something and catch it. And he was walking around in such joy, having a great time. And I don't know how, hot dog vendors don't make much, what, 75, 80 bucks a day, if that. And he was happy. And I thought, why can't I be happy like that? Which is what a lot of people will do, making a comparison, right? But then I thought, why don't I just go ahead and let myself be happy? Making that decision. Setting your bucket down where you are and start working where you are at the level you're able to work at. If an opportunity comes, make it a practice to start saying yes to the opportunity and not arguing, because you don't know what good is going to come from that. If your internal wisdom says no, don't do it. Allow it to be that simple. That's my preaching. So we had this self-actualization. We have Maslow's beautiful hierarchy of needs. And when we are in survival, we are in what I call the 3 F's. We are fighting, it's flight, we want to run away, or we freeze, we shut down. And if we put our mind on what if there's enough, winter's coming, I watch Game of Thrones, winter is coming, hard times could come. We could be talking about conspiracies of the government or what's happening with our foods. And when we start focusing on these negative things and we start allowing like what is coming to us in the news to start feeding in, that starts activating the fear centers in the brain. That poor little amygdala gets overstimulated, and next thing you know, stress hormones are flooding your body. And you're going into that lower vibration of pure survival. And maybe you try to fight your way out of it. You feel like you have to escape, right? And you might become combative. You might get negative. People offer suggestions, and you're going, no, I don't think that's right. No, I'm not going to do it just because you say so. And you're going, what are you fighting? I'm trying to help you here. I had a wonderful friend that would get into arguments. She'd be unhappy with other people, and then she'd talk to me about it, and I would be agreeing, and she'd want to have an argument about it, and then she'd like be acting like she and I were in an argument, and I'd say, who are you arguing with? I don't know who you're arguing with. Please tell me, because I am literally agreeing with everything you're saying. Are you arguing with your good and the world's agreement that you can have what you need and want to be happy? Okay? Do you suddenly get the urge, you get closer to your goal, and suddenly you got to get out of there. Something happens, the world goes chaotic, or you just want to leave. The pressure starts building in your body. Boy, that was a big one for me. I really wouldn't get into fight mode too much, but I would get into that flight. And I started noticing that when that runaway feeling would come, like I might actually kind of get annoyed or like, oh, I got to get out of here. This is just too much. If I stayed through, normally there'd be a big payoff on the other side of that. So now I notice, hey, this feeling is up. I'm giving you some training here. This negative feeling is up. I must be close to what I want. I need to pay attention in a different way. I'm going to show you what to do with these feelings in just a minute, okay? The other is the freeze and lockdown. Now, the reason I bring this one in is because if there was trauma when you were younger, and especially under the age of 7, but you could be suffering post-traumatic stress from different events in your adult life. But the strategy of children is to, oftentimes they will go to sleep, pass out, they zone out, and they're inert. They just can't move. And suddenly, the more stress they get, the slower they get, and finally they just can't move at all. When you're coming into that freeze zone, when you notice like, hey, I'm locked down, I can't even think, then you need to know that what you're dealing with is your survival, and there's probably a lot of levels of anxiety there. What needs to happen is that's when you would actually reach out to a friend. I had a friend that was he was in like multi-level marketing, and he had this great phrase. He says, when you're down, call your upline. When you're up, call your downline. And what that means is when you find yourself that you're locking down and you can't function or you can't think, or like there's just no information coming in. You ever go through that? Now, I'm a creative person. To not be able to create is physically painful. It's worse than, it's like this emotional constipation. Like, it's just excruciating. So when you're down, call your upline. So when you're down, call the people that you respect and admire. Call a healer, a coach. Call someone who's in an up position, that things are going well for them, that they're positive. Don't call that friend to commiserate with, because they're going to feed into the negativity. They'll actually feed off your negativity, and they'll start cycling around. If we could think about like a psychic vampire. Boy, I'm speaking to someone directly tonight, so I just have to go with this. They will feed off of that misery. This is why you need to be around higher vibration people. But when you are up and you're energetic and you're in your visionary mode, that's when you would reach back down and communicate with potential clients, with your existing clients or friends. That's when you would check in, when you're up, that's when you check in with your family, right? Or that's when you hit the networking world. So when you're up, call your upline. When you're down, when you're up, call your downline. When you're down, call your upline. And you're keeping that relationship going. That way you're always contributing and getting fed at the same time. But we're going to go right into a way of teaching you really how to deal with that. We're going to teach you how to speak to the part of the brain that's activated. Now, coming back up, do you remember this triangle? Now here's the other triangle from Module 1, and we mentioned this last week, where these are talking about the exact same levels. You cannot see me pointing at this with my hand, but I'm actually waving at the image with my hand. Okay, so the lower levels of guilt, shame, apathy, fear, but then even that desire, anger, pride. No, I'm not going to ask them. I don't want to give them the satisfaction. That's all actually not only negative emotions, but those are fear-driven emotions. Okay? It's that middle zone as we start moving up that's our most productive. And so we're actually dealing with vibrational levels of consciousness. And when we shift our focus, well, whatever it is that we're focusing on and giving attention to, what we awaken ourselves to, what we are awake and alert to, is what I want to say. What we are awake and alert to is what grows. So this is why simply shifting your focus to a higher vibration, asking new questions, brings in new answers. We couple this with the brain science of focusing on your heart or rolling your eyes up and taking you into the higher vibration of theta. Then we're connecting into what's called our greater capacity. We're connecting into a greater intelligence. And the answer arrives in a way that it is in not only alignment with your higher and greater good, but it is a win-win for everyone involved. Money is there's literally like no limit to money. Think about what Bill Gates, another visionary, excuse me, I'll take a sip of water. What he did with bringing a home computer at an affordable level with the software at the time all bundled in together until he got busted on it, right? Taking all the existing technology and putting it together in a way that made sense and made it affordable. How many multi-millionaires did he create? And now, here, I mean, he just keeps making money. It's on autopilot. He's making so much money now, he can't give it away fast enough. And that's become his new mission. And education made such a difference in his life. I mean, he and his wife really thought about it on their honeymoon. And he said the one thing that really set apart for him, that gave him the opportunities that other people didn't get to have, he saw it being education. So that's why he's giving to the schools. So we have this idea that if we have to, in order to give and do our mission, it's about us giving something up. What we're really giving up is struggle. But what if it's just as true that if we give to the world something that matters, then the world will give back something that matters to you? Breathe into that idea for a minute, that you don't have to leave your family, or your family doesn't have to go through a hardship. You know, when it's the right thing to do, it does not feel like a sacrifice. But we're not talking about having to create that. We're going to actually be talking about how to identify your role. And when you listen to the bonus where Mukesh and I are talking, and suddenly I'm taking him into some of this energy clearing piece that you're going to be experiencing, Mukesh connected into a very wealthy leader within him, that he said, that's the truth of who I am, and I never stepped into that role before. I wanted to be a servant or somebody on the side, or I was behind. It was the first time he saw himself as a leader, and the kind of leader he saw himself as was, I said, well, gosh, if you had an Indian name, Native American Indian name, because he's Hindi, right? He's already got an Indian name. Mukesh is laughing at me. But if you had that name, you'd be He Who Leads with Laughter. Are you there, Mukesh?
Yes, and I do laugh a lot. And actually, I was as a kid, I was told not to laugh that much, and I was conditioned that I talk while laughing.
Yeah.
And I said, this is who I am. And actually, I was conditioned to, not to laugh. And even now, I can be a kid and laugh like quite a bit, because I find the joy and happiness in simple things. And yes, as you just mentioned, that I made a comment, this comment to Catherine, that said, you know what, before, whenever somebody asked me to do the visualization, or doing the past life regression and going back to the time of original source and everything, I used to kind of see myself as a person, as a servant, or as a person like a poor man, so-called, or or even a vice president, or like everything like second person, so-called. Okay.
Yeah.
But when we did this exercise, like all of a sudden, this is the first time, actually, I'll say, because then I had to create that, like, oh, I'm the, president, I'm the king, I'm da 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 da. But that was all the creation. It was not a kind of natural flowing process.
Right.
And now when we did this, Catherine, and this was even I didn't realize in the beginning, but later on I said, hold on a minute. That was a total change, because I saw myself as a king. I saw myself as a king with the crown and everything, and people are standing left, right, front, and on the left, right were my team members, so-called. And then in the second visualization, it's like I'm not wearing a crown, but I'm wearing very nicely dressed, and I'm like doing, which you are going to talk about, and the one of my hidden desire, so-called, and or to excel in that. And I said, that's amazing that I didn't had to kind of force it. It just came naturally who I am. And that's where I found that, okay, now I believe that I open up that, my true self.
Right. When I'm doing healing work with people, when I'm doing any kind of change work, in my mind's eye, as I'm connecting to that person, they're telling their story. And I always get an internal representation of that person, right? So I might see them symbolically. I might say, wow, your job looks like a big bucket tied around your neck. So I'm getting the subconscious language, right, of the imagery. And that's what imagery is. That's how our unconscious communicates to us. It doesn't really give us words. We're looking for something to be clearly said to us, but it communicates in images and feelings. And that's why it's so important to deal with these two aspects honestly, forthrightly, directly, because that's how it's communicating to us. All right? With the power of our spoken word, we can turn DNA on and off. And that's why the power of your word is so important. There is a vibration in the intention, and it has power too. But when we are communicating with ourselves first and then communicate with others, feelings, imagery. Remember that. So I'm getting this internal representation, this image of a person, and maybe they've told their story. But then after we go through the piece, my inner image of them changes. And when that image, my inner image of them changes, they experience the breakthrough. Then I am always amazed that the inner image that I see that person winds up speaking it verbatim. Then with that image I'm seeing, I may have an internal dialogue about what's happening. So I might say, wow, he's got a hole in his bucket. Before he had a hole in his bucket, and now that bucket looks like, a golden net of opportunity or whatever, right? And go, wow. So now I'm talking to myself about it. And that person will say, it's like there's this golden net of opportunity all around me that I just haven't been seeing until now. And they're always kind of chagrined, but it didn't exist until then. And maybe if I had, when they were in the bucket mode, if I'd said, hey, just imagine a beautiful golden net of opportunity around you, they probably couldn't even construct that image. Does that make sense? They wouldn't even be able to find that image because it's not in their normal sphere of how they're talking to themselves, or it's not matching the way they have identified themselves or their reality or what role they're in. So when I get that change in the internal image, I know that they've made a shift. When you reported that you had an internal image shift, then I knew you had made a change. And even for when we were going through the little visualization, people say, well, are you psychic or what's happening? I said, if you had a Native American, name, it would be He Who Leads with Laughter. I didn't know that you got criticized as a kid for laughing, right? And that here I just know my experience with you.
Yep.
And that we laugh a lot while we're working, which is how I like to work. Every office I've ever worked in, we laugh all the time. My bosses didn't always quite understand it, but they said, hey, we get a lot more done and we're making more money than most people, so they didn't argue too much with the fact that we laughed a lot, right?
No, actually, the truth is that I was, thinking about my new book name, and that's what it appears: Inner Breakthrough for Leaders Who Lead with Laughter.
That's a great name. I would buy that book. Totally. Hey, Lead with Laughter. It'd actually be Lead with Laughter.
Yeah.
And Inner Breakthroughs for visionary leaders. That would be a good book title. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to stop talking because you and I start talking and we fall in love again, and then everybody has to wait for us to,
Okay, carry on, please.
Okay. So what blocks the vision? So we talked a little bit about that survival mode, that it's too low. It's too low of a vibration to process the information, just like we were talking about. You can't find that image. So when we think about our ancestral programs in the body, there's two main energy centers. There's the navel chakra, which is just below the belly button, and then there's the heart chakra. In the visualization that I took Mukesh through, we started with the heart, and I always start with the heart because it has the most neurology, the most power. This is our wisdom is here. This is sending out, coming back in. The inner master lives there, our sacred self, so many reasons, but I always start with heart energy, and the heart balances all the other energy centers of the body. And the second chakra is about our, like, how we were nurtured as children. It's mother energy. It's our tribal energy, our like family community. There's sexuality, our beliefs about money, which is really a belief about relationship, okay? There's about our roles. So there's a lot of power there, and especially for women, our connection to sacred source, to God, this is actually the center. And so I don't want to go off into another teaching, but this is where we hold most of that energy as women, okay? Men hold it up higher. They actually would hold it up more in their throat chakra, and then even maybe in the back of the neck. So the throat and the second chakra are what balance each other out. That's speaking your truth and authority. So I have a whole course called 7 Chakra Wealth Coaching. I just want to touch on these points, but they kind of communicate and balance with each other. In our lower back, that is the sacral chakra that matches the second chakra. This is about being supported, and when people have money issues, they usually have back issues on some level. And if someone says, I'm having back issues, I can ask them where they're having their pain or disconnect, and I can usually tell them exactly what money issues are going on in their life. That's all. I mean, that's all I need to know. Okay. So in the back of the neck is about our authority. So do you see how having the second chakra, if we have our role in our community or tribe, and then in the back of our neck is authority? Well, that's why healing modalities like cranial sacral work are so beautiful and so powerful, because it balances those out. So when you're doing a lot of process work, I highly recommend finding someone who is a good body worker, who, is not just massage. Massage is awesome, but if you could find someone who works with some of the very gentle healing methods like cranial sacral, or now I'm going to start trying to name things off, but if you want some recommendations on that, I can definitely send some things to you. All right. So this is where we're holding a lot of that energy. Another point that I want to bring your attention to is this red wave of energy, which is the first chakra, which is actually like a cone of energy that goes down facing to the earth. Now this is like our father energy, and this is tribal. I mean, this is our pure animal survival, okay? But this is called our wealth chakra, because when we tune in to our environment, we're able to get, get those waves. We are getting in tune with our environment. We are able to get opportunities. We're tuning into the wealth that's there and all the potential of the earth. It's amazing. So our environment, according to Bruce Lipton in Biology of Belief, and we have his book listed here so you can look at that, it is our environment that turns on our success DNA. We have, maybe you've heard about having a DNA blueprint for success. And Bruce Lipton talks about this, and this was one of those moments that when I got it, it was like the light bulb going off, and it was a great big light bulb. He says, here we have this map, and everybody's all excited about this map. But unless someone could read the map and then maybe, turn something on, like in the DNA or the genes, to make something happen, it's no good. It's just like, okay, there's a book like that you've never read, right? It's a fat lot of good that is. It is the environment that not only turns that on, but it's like it reads it. Our DNA is like having this communication with the environment, and what happens, and this is the reason too that I believe that a lot of people are having a big psychic awakening. What happens is, inside of us we say, what needs to happen in order for us to master and thrive in this environment? This is what you are designed to do, to master, thrive, and I would say work in cooperation with your environment. Now let that sink in for a minute. And it would become more than, hey, just practice. There's like this innate knowledge that gets turned on inside of you. That's what happened with great-great-grandpa Winfrey. There is something happening to you right now that, hey, it's coming from down through your DNA. It's been inside of you to be the fulfillment of this desire, of this prime objective. But then there's something happening in your environment that says now is the time. Then when we allow ourselves to connect in to that higher spiritual power, that's the activation. That's where the vision starts to come in. The vision actually starts coming in through the third chakra, which is the yellow one, and it communicates to the sixth chakra, which this is why body work is so important, but also as we allow ourselves to meet what energy blocks, what unprocessed emotions are there, what hurts are there, unresolved anger, and allow it to not just discharge. We always think about clearing and getting rid of things so that we can have something, but I want to invite you to think about it another way. Before, I already mentioned the math equation, but I want you to think of it as energy that's going in the wrong direction. And energy never, you can't, get rid of it. You can move it, but what's even more powerful is to transmute it, which is what Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich, right? Transmute, transform that energy. When we hear transmutation, we might usually be thinking about when they were turning lead into gold. But we want to turn that energy. What if all the anger and resentment and fear that's been locking in your body could just as easily become confidence, blessings, and gratitude? What if all of that energy could get transformed and redirected into your particular genius and give you the energy that you need to raise your vibration, to kind of get over the hump of your current experience? We try to fight anger, but anger, it's really your truth teller. So I believe in meeting every one of our negative emotions, even our lowest, most unloveliest emotion, with grace and compassion. Get the information from it. Create what it is that we need, because it's an idea that we formed that simply got stuck. When we meet it with love and compassion, it transforms it. So these ancestral patterns, they matter. And so we have our group identity, like, oh, we come from a family of warriors or farmer, tradesmen, royalty, like Mikesh, our friend, is. And something, when I really started looking into the ancestral thing, I had this idea that we were kind of mutts, that we kind of had this chaotic family life. We know that there was some prosperity kind of back in the family, but when I started really resolving my own story and coming into a space of gratitude, I had this like 2-week period that suddenly the internet just came alive, and I was able to get amazing levels of information that weren't even on Ancestry.com. But I found out that I came from a long line on both sides of the family, very wealthy people. I am related to Johnny Cash. Like my grandmother and his daddy were cousins, right? So we're like distant relations. But through the Cash line, I'm actually related to a Scottish king. And when I read what the Scottish, this particular royal, what his story was, is he was like fourth in line, and he got tired of waiting. So he just decided to go make his own fame, and I thought, oh my God, that's totally my story. But I found out I'm related to like famous people and everything else, and something rose up. But then when I found that out, it didn't matter, right? It's like, wow. So there's this. I was criticized for wanting wealth and beauty and loving art and culture and finer things because they weren't practical, right? I mean, could you imagine? It's like, well, you just think you're better than us. No, I don't. I don't. Well, maybe. No, I don't really think I'm better. I just like better, different things. Please don't take me back to the monster truck rally. I don't want to go. Right. But
I think the main thing is that we are different than others.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not better, it's not worse. We are
No,
not putting
no.
anybody down. We just have some different skills, different
Yeah.
knowledge, different awareness. And some things may have come through our DNA, but something we are because we are taking some actions and we are, moving forward, and that's how they are becoming, we are
Sometimes you just
unlocking
like it.
them.
Yeah, sometimes you just like it. I'll always love country music, and there'll always be things that I love about the way I grew up. And there's things that I'm so glad I'm not that way. But yeah, there's just different choices. But it instills family pride, traditions to honor rites and passages, oral history, our collective learning. Hey, when we want to explain why we have these certain family traits, that type of thing. Support family hierarchy of order and authority, and support protection and survival. The last two are probably the most important because as you start moving forward, and again, Bruce Lipton talks about this. It is a sciencey book, but he talks about things in a story form, so it's really easy to get the science and get the gist of what he's talking about. Your DNA literally will rise up and it will create chaos in your life. I'm telling you, it does. It will. And, here we have this beautiful program that's in beta that we're creating right now. We're building an airplane as we're flying it. And we have these beautiful people who said, stepped up and said yes. And because we're stretching, there's some chaos, and we're going through the process with this. And at the same time, nothing's stopping us from transforming, progressing, and prospering as we continue to make the decision to move forward. Even if we have to fail forward, we're going to keep moving forward. There's nothing that can stop us, right? So when we see the chaos, when we see the stuff, we want you to know, and when you see it, when you see the chaos, when you see the glitches, when you see the shutdowns, when you see suddenly you're acting like your mother, or you're suddenly throwing a tantrum like your dad. Like I used to all of a sudden I would want to have scotch and a cigarette when I would think about that, I go, oh, my dad's programs are up, right? When suddenly there's something kind of showing up there, that's your sign that you are getting really close. Press through. And it's not, you don't have to power through. You have to connect to that higher vibration of energy. And we're going to end tonight with going up into that theta zone, going into that I see potential zone so that you can really see this feeling of the difference here. But energetically, the chakras correspond to beliefs about ourselves, our place in the world, and our personal power. And all that formed before the age of 8 or 9. But as I said before, you could have had some traumatic events that could cause some things. So oftentimes that's why we need to meet these programs, these things, these feelings that we're experiencing with love and compassion. So often we start beating and abusing ourselves the way that we were beaten and abused or mistreated or neglected in the name of trying to be disciplined, in the name of being a better person. That is a lie that you accepted about your abuse. Doesn't it make more sense that you would meet whatever that emotion is with compassion? Create a space of grace within you and find out what the message is. I have a client that was diagnosed with breast cancer. I think I shared this last week. We put her in connection with the breast itself, and found out what did the breast need, what was going on, how was this created. And we went through that process, and the results of that was, one, she felt more at peace, she was calmer. But then I got a wonderful text saying that it turned out they were able to go in. It was not nearly as bad as what they thought. In fact, it looked better than what the tests were showing. How about that? And now it's just going to be some hormonal therapy, not even any radiation or chemo. None of it's as bad as it was on the prognosis before. But mostly what she was noticing that she was peaceful, and she wasn't second-guessing herself, but there's this new space of how she was in a relationship with everyone in her life, just by connecting into her own body for 10, 15 minutes. So Mukesh asked this, we're talking about, get out of that survival mode. How can we get out of survival mode? Well, we can get out by speaking directly to the different parts. Now, right now, this is a very kind of crude drawing, but we have three main brains. We have the primitive brain, which is about self-preservation and aggression, and it's tied deep down into I'm not going to try to say the word, but it's deep. This is the deepest, oldest part of the brain. We'll call that the reptilian brain or the crocodile brain. This is also connected down into those lower levels down in the gut, that gut brain, right? And it's like, hey, when it comes down to me or you, remember that it's me, right? That's that thinking. Well, I'm going to teach you how to speak directly to it. And in the bonus call, you actually heard me speak to that part, and then to the little higher level, which was the emotions, which addressed belonging and connection. And then that moved up into the higher part of the body, moving more up into the middle towards the heart, getting a new sense of feeling. Then we have the rational brain, which is up in your head, right? And that's just a processor. And now we're talking to this, I'm so glad we have our intellect, our beautiful intellect. I love the intellect. But the brain itself is just a processor. And the intelligence is actually in the heart. So connect more into the emotions. So let me give you a little demonstration of what it's like to speak directly to a part of your brain. And we're going to speak directly to the reptilian part of the brain. Now, right now, you may have some concerns. It could be financial. There could be some things physically happening with you. When you get older and your body is not behaving the way that it used to, or, it takes a little longer to get up, or maybe you're more vulnerable in some way, then this is going to activate this part, okay? And then it stimulates the emotions. But just notice what happens when I speak directly to your reptilian brain. We have food. We have water. We have shelter. We can rest here. Take a breath. You may have noticed just this little level of tension, just releasing your body. One more time. Now, I'm going to say this, but then I'm going to do this a third time with you repeating after me. So now I'm going to say this second part. We have food. We have water. We have shelter. We can rest here. We have tools and weapons to master the land. I will take it. Breathe in. Again, now notice what's happening. Some people, like I'm literally feeling the back of my head kind of relax, and there's this energy. And when I said I will take it, it was like something kind of went, yeah. I kind of like, yeah, I feel kind of badass right now, right? So now repeat after me these words. We have food. We have water. We have shelter. We can rest here. We have tools and weapons to master the land. I will take it. I would love to hear what your response was, what you're noticing when you speak directly to that part of your brain. Now, part of the reason this is important is, and Mukesh kind of had a little resistance. He said, oh, Catherine, because I said something about hunting. He says, good hunting grounds, that doesn't mean anything to me. I was raised in the city. That your reptilian brain doesn't know that you were raised in the city. It thinks you were raised in a cave with a lot of very fast-moving animals around. That's what it thinks. So we have
because it's pulling all the information from the DNA, when DNA holds the generations information.
Yeah, but then when you go out and you do sales and marketing, you're hunting, right? And you want to have a clear idea about what you're going after. And so often when we're doing this personal work, we kind of get into, I want peace and love and flowers and joy and ease. And I'm kind of stuck on joy and ease. I had a lady that kept kind of feeding that back. I want to do this with joy and ease. I said, well, I want joy and ease, but could you imagine going through all the effort of, like, let's say going fishing? And you buy all the bait and the tackle, you buy the clothes, you get the fishing license, you go through all of that, you get out in your boat, you row out to the middle, and the fish just jump in your boat and you row back. Well, what fun was that? You didn't get to have the experience. So maybe on some level, you're wanting to have a different experience, but you can choose to have joy, and you could choose not to make it so easy that it's boring, because we grow through challenge. Okay, so we want to go ahead and allow yourself to be able to be strengthened and develop more flexibility in your thinking, your experience, and your faith muscles, as you will. So sometimes we have to try those out. So we have food, we have water, we have shelter, we can rest here. We have tools and weapons to master the land. There's good hunting here. I will take it. There we go. Now we've just turned that on. It's moved it out of the mode of, oh no, what do I have? I don't need it, and having to cower and freeze and be afraid. Right now, your body got the message, we can rest and relax here. Okay? When we deal directly with the emotion or the memory that created whatever experience we're having, and create for ourselves what we really need, it immediately raises our vibration. And we really have to acknowledge the emotional truth we're experiencing now before a greater truth can arrive. There's a part of you that says, I'm hurting, I'm angry, it's not going to work, I'm afraid. And how do you feel when you're trying to communicate your needs and concerns to someone else, and they just say, well, we're going to clear that in you, we're just going to get rid of it, That's not true. What we choose to believe instead is something else completely. You're just in your child program. So I'm not going to take you seriously. I don't know about you. Frankly, that pisses me off when people talk to me like that. I need to be heard. Don't you? So the way that you hear that is you acknowledge it. And that's where the four-part statement is so powerful, where you are telling the truth about where you are right now. Now, as I was saying, Mukesh and I are building the course as we go along, and we're intentionally not giving handouts at the time because a new teaching, a little deeper teaching will come in sometimes. I want to make sure it's on the handout. So is it okay if I give you the newest, most up-to-date materials to make this all work for you? So what is the negative emotion that you find that you have to battle all the time? Is it one of the 3 F's? Is it the fight? Is it the flight? Or do you find that you're freezing down? Which one of those? And if you're going through a period of like going blank and you can't think of anything, that's frozen. So whatever that is, right now we're just going to go right into a 4-part statement right now. So whatever that negative emotion is, and I'm going to go with Mukesh, give me a negative word. I am like so in the zone I can't think of a negative word, even though I said pissed off. You know what?
I
I'm going to go
procrastinate.
with pissed off. Procrastinate.
Okay, even
Yours is
pissed off. Yeah.
procrastinate. Yours is procrastinate.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and deal with some of that inner anger that's been shutting it down. Because people who have a great vision sometimes, and especially like healers are very angry. They feel like somehow God has failed them. You give us all these gifts, you give us this prime direction, and then we don't get any direction after that. Like we're supposed to be doing something, but why do we have to learn marketing? Come on, just let me do the healing work. I don't want to figure out my USP and create a brochure. Could you just give me the people that you sent me to heal? And why do I have to hustle all the time for this? It's very frustrating, right? So I'm just going to go with being pissed off. Is that okay? And maybe if you get offended with that, please forgive me, but that word's just kind of coming up. So here's how it would go. And I want you to use your bad words when you're in the negative run. Use the words the way you talk. When you burn yourself, you don't go, oh my, I'm experiencing a wave of negative emotion now that make me feel powerless. No, you go, oh, hell and damn, right? So you say a bad word. Use those words, okay? So I'm going to use a bad word, a bad grown-up word, okay? So here's how it goes. Here's negative. I am pissed off. And I'm going to be pissed off. And I want you to follow along, so I'll start again. Whatever your negative word is, replace it with mine, or you can use my word. I am pissed off. And I am going to be pissed off. And I'm going to do everything in my power to stay pissed off until I no longer need to be angry. The fact that a different word came in, yeah, very good. So what's the opposite of angry or being pissed off? Well, then let me see. The opposite might be at peace, might be cooperative, being heard. Hey, I'm excited. Because the other's like a lot of excitement, a lot of energy pulling away. Oh, I'm excited, right? Oh, I'm excited. Good. So I am excited, and I'm going to be excited. And I'll do everything in my power to become excited until I know myself as one who's excited about my vision or excited about my circumstances. Boy, that's a hard one when things aren't going right. Like, how could you get really excited about things not working out right now? But don't you think that level of excitement would create more engagement and give you more energy than the pissed off feeling? Makes sense to me. The answer is always present, even if we can't see it. Just because that wall's there, it's temporary. It's just a mental construct. So instead of, you're going to be noticing what your experience is right now. You're going to be noticing patterns. And in fact, there may be a way, Mukesh, I hope it's okay if I share this, and I'm going to ask for forgiveness later if I was wrong. But you were telling me a story that you were kind of dealing with, contractors. It seems like every time you would deal with somebody, they would suddenly disappear on you, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't find them. And then there was this other person that you really, really needed to talk to that had made several agreements to talk to you and kept forgetting about you and wouldn't talk to you, right?
Yeah.
Then we started doing all of this work, and something happened, and suddenly you had to be the one that didn't show up.
Yep.
Right? And you were like, why is this always happening? Remember we were having that, and why is God allowing this? And why, right? Well, for one, that was your belief.
That's
And
true.
this was how, and you were perceiving the world that way. You were attracting people that matched the program, matched that feeling. Then you finally wound up doing the violation yourself. And that's actually a sign that there's progression. Now, this goes both ways. When suddenly, if you're the one doing something and someone else suddenly starts doing it and you see it, or suddenly you're doing it to someone else, what's happening is there is an energetic shift and you're aware of what's happening. Then you're moving yourself into a new choice. Okay? So
Yeah.
where the four-part statement would happen. Oh, and then we had even the bigger revelation about, like, we could talk about customers not showing up and buying, right? And we said, oh my gosh, we have our customers trained that way, right? You had customers and people you wanted to do business with trained into that reality. So we released our customers from that obligation, right, of running that program. And what was it you wanted instead? That was, instead of not showing up, what was the opposite?
That they are eager to work with me. They are eager to buy my products, and
Okay.
they just love my writings or my courses, and they're not looking for just freebies.
Okay, so what would be a word for that?
Like they are willing to pay for the products and services.
Okay, engaged is another one,
Engaged.
right?
That's right.
Okay. All right. And so using, whatever that positive word, we flipped it over. Then we created in a series of 3 what that would look like.
Yep.
Then an amazing offer came in,
Yep.
and someone you'd been trying to chase showed up and came to you.
Yeah, actually, the person walked himself in that,
Yeah.
and then I had a discussion, and we kind of agreed on another deal.
Right. Amazing. Right. Okay. So it's there. And if you start with the fact that you're assuming that it's there instead of wondering why it's not there, that assumption starts shifting everything. It starts shifting your behavior. Okay. So sometimes we have to allow the unknown to be present before the solution can arrive. And I have the illustration of, if you look at this, you recognize this is good old algebra. And 21 equals 6 times x plus x. So right now, x is the unknown quantity. If we try to imagine something, we'll say, we gave the example today of, well, why can't we visualize the solution that we want? Why can't we just visualize a certain amount of money? Why can't we visualize this relationship or something working? You try to find it, but literally there's a hole there. And so you think, well, I could imagine a red elephant, and I can imagine a pile of money someplace. Why couldn't I imagine that money being in my bank account? Remember that? And so we were talking about that, and I said, this is one of the fallacies. Like when we use our imagination, we're putting together two known things to make kind of a combination of those. That's a genius. We'll take what's here and then we go, oh, look, we didn't know we could configure this together to kind of get a different result. That's cool. But if we want to make something brand new that we've never experienced before, we have to take something that's known and connect it with something that's unknown to create a brand new result. That's what it takes. And you need to be okay with the not knowing. So remember when you went from math to X and you go, well, that's just a 3. I'll just put a 3 there. Why do I have to have an X? Well, they were teaching you a formula. And allowing yourself to not know and move forward anyway and assume there must be an answer there and it must be solvable, then the money just becomes a consideration. Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, people who did all these amazing things managed millions of dollars for their cause. They were very well supported financially, in whatever way. They had all the service and help that they personally needed in order to achieve their goals. Did they struggle? Yes. Did they have to stand up? Yes. Did they step up? But they were always true. And when they found out that there was a deficiency, it's like, oh, well, this is going to take money. Well, yeah, there's plenty of money. Let's just find out who we want to do business with. Who do we want to invite into this opportunity? Then it just became something that needed to be handled, like where is the office going to be, or what side of the room do I like my sofa to be on? It comes down to just a detail. So the big idea is to identify what's really stopping you from connecting to your vision. I mean, this is one thing. It's like we really wanted to hammer that down. Like we had some ideas about our past. We had some things that we were dealing with energetically where we thought the vision came from. And then we had to allow ourselves to come to this new space of the unknown and to meet those negative emotions. And we discovered that that vision doesn't come out from outside of you, but rather it's something that's within you and that your environment and experiences activate. And then we showed you how to get out of survival mode and into clarity to take right action. Now, in the support materials, you'll have this video so you can watch it in the replay. Then we have the call to action PDF that's designed to match, because we have some things that aren't necessarily on the PDF that I didn't know that we were going to be talking about. So that's actually coming afterwards. And then the audio behind the curtain, which was the meditation I did with Mukesh. He who leads with laughter. All right. Yeah. So that's your new name. You're no longer Mr. Black Belt. But anyway, right. That behind the curtain discussion about this course, but then when we spontaneously went into it, and then I added an additional meditation or process really of taking you into that conversation with the reptilian brain, the mammal brain, and then doing some chakra clearing and then going up. So it was very rich. A lot of material on this one, and you want to be able to listen to these as often as possible. So we have some support materials. We have the DVD collection, and I found all of these on Amazon.com, by the way. And usually these are going to be available. You could just look up. There's even some free PDFs, and you can find things on YouTube also. So there's free resources on every one of these. The African American Lives DVD collection. The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and then Peace Pilgrim's Story, Her Life and Work in Her Own Words. And I didn't get to read the whole book, but I got to read several excerpts of it, and it's on my list now. I don't even want to put it on my Kindle. I ordered the book. I can hardly wait to get it. I'm really excited about reading this. I love reading biographies. So, Mukesh, before we head out, do you have any questions or comments, or did any questions come in or anything?
No, it was a very extensive, actually. It's close to almost 2 hours, this
Oh
whole,
my God, this one was much longer than we normally planned for. I
yeah,
did not
yeah,
realize
yeah,
we'd
but
gone that far.
it is such a full of so much wealth of, knowledge and wisdom in there. And like the particularly like that, equation where which at the at last end of the slides, there were two known numbers, and there were two, like 21 and 6 were known, like I call them, those are our known failure modes. Oh, I failed
Mm-hmm.
there. Oh, I failed there. Okay, so you have a few failures. And now total unknown, which is the two axes there. And like, if we visualize just that, we make that number, like in this case we pick that number as 3, so that 21 equal to 6 plus times 3, 18 plus 3 equal to 21. But those x represents that, you can, if you can think of pink elephant, or like a totally green zebra, or anything like that, that means you can visualize that you are with the positive cash flow. That
Yeah.
means you are with the, like the highly paying clients with you for your products or services, whatever you do. And because we are in a selling mode, doesn't matter we are in a actual entrepreneur, or even we are as a job. When we go look for a job, we are marketing our skills. When we ask for a raise, we are marketing our skills. So by visualizing now, like, and without putting some preconditions, that okay, like if like okay, I need $3 million or $5 million, $7 million, $10 million,
Mm-hmm.
whatever we think, like we we can think of. So that is your x.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can visualize pink elephant, you can visualize, like, $3 million as well, and or $50 million, or even $100 million, whatever you want to feel like. So the
But you
goal
know,
is that when you visualize that, now you say, okay, yeah, okay, now I can visualize that. The total perception changes that, because the hardest part, because this is coming from my own learning, was to understand this concept. Because every time I try to visualize, I say, oh yeah, it's not going to happen. Why I'm visualizing? So
yeah.
I was putting my own self down before even I begin the
Yeah,
journey.
you were projecting your doubt into the future. Let's
That's right.
take everybody through a quick meditation. I really got into the zone. I did not know had gone this long. Was not paying attention to the time, so my apologies on that. Mikesh, we may have to split the video into two parts for people, but let's go ahead and just do a brief meditation right quick. Okay?
Yes, yes.
So right now, all of us together, heart to heart, just tune into your own heart for a moment. And let's come into this space of gratitude. And I want you to know that I see you and I appreciate you. I'm so grateful that you are part of this experience and all the learning and all the blessings that is coming as a result. Thank you so much for your part in this. And now, just allow yourself to count your blessings. What are you grateful for? Now allow yourself to ground and connect to the earth so that your body is supported, and bring up the earth energy all the way up. And now I want to just invite you to become aware of your spiritual light and just connect to source. And it's like a pole of light that's coming down to the top of your head, down either side of your spine, and it's mixing and mingling with the earth energy. Your heart energy is balancing it too. Eyes closed, roll your eyes up and imagine that together we're all traveling up this golden pole of light. And right now, just allow yourself to expand and to get bigger than your ordinary circumstances. And I also want to invite you to look down and to see the version of yourself who's going through maybe being stuck or perplexed or facing challenges, however you're seeing yourself. And right now, let's just hold the intention that there is a golden ball of just pure love. I just see it. It looks like gold and white light, and this ball of just pure, unconditional love. And together, let's just send this love right down to the top of your head, all the way down into your body, just to clearly communicate with every cell and fiber of your being that you are loved, you are accepted, and you're welcomed here. And that who you are matters. And what you need matters. And what you hope for and wish matters. And that we love you. And anything that's in our power to create for you, we want you to have it. And if we don't know how to do it, there's a greater power that's here, right now for you. And the answer is as you wish. Breathe into that light. Now, all of us together, let's look down and let's just see that version of ourselves getting that love, that support, that encouragement. And let's just allow any of those negative thoughts or feelings or those silly doubts to unwind, unbind, dissolve. All of those frozen particles. Whew. The need to run away or the fear, and just let love, let perfect love just cast out that fear. There we go. And let's just witness that fear and anxiety and tension being transformed into grace, compassion, and confidence. I see you, and you are magnificent. Thank you for who you are and what you do. I am so blessed by you. And so now, just allow yourself to come back down into your body, coming back into alignment. Bring that part of you that's just been struggling. Just wrap your arms around yourself. And just bring it in. Bring that beautiful little hug in. There you go. Little hug. Oh, go ahead, hug yourself. It's okay. Just say I love you, and everything's going to be all right. When that feels complete, open your eyes. We have a beautiful parting quote from Oprah. She says, "If you don't know what your passion is, realize that one reason for your existence on earth is to find it." And what a perfect way to end the call tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, on behalf of me and Mikesh, thank you, Mikesh. Did a great job.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah.
We witness your greatness. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye to everybody.